A few days ago, Riot had a connectivity problem with a number of ISPs. This caused many players all across North America to lose connection, which resulted in lost ranking, lost matches, and, as in my case, leave a buster assuming the worst. You unquestionably have record of this accessible to you. Here are my complaints. I would like them listened to. If a problem arises that players have the capability to fix themselves, then it is reasonable to take the position that they're responsible for addressing that problem. However, if a problem arises that players have absolutely no capability to address, which is not at their end, it is wrong to punish them for it and wrong to expect them to address it or take responsibility for it. It was literally always out of player hands. The problem was one between Riot and a number of major ISPs, most notably Comcast. Riot reached out to these ISPs to fix the matter. Literally no player could have accomplished this. This was something on Riot's level, not on the level of any player or customer. Refusing to redress player problems that arose from this issue on Riot's level is just bad business. I'm not saying that you have to go in and fix every single thing, but at least fixing the problems of players who are upset enough to specifically come to you would lead to a far more positive customer interaction and establish far greater loyalty than the "sucks to be you, bro" attitude I've encountered up to now. Speaking of which, I have heard the same line from multiple support personnel about how I'd want someone punished if they disconnected on me and let my team down, etc. No, I wouldn't, and I resent having that assumed of me. I'm not some puerile little teenager playing with delusions of power through video games. I'm a grown adult. I play League with my friends, and we do it to spend time together and have fun. We only ever play against bots. But even if I were playing PvP, if someone were having technical problems and connection issues, I would be much more concerned about their issues than I would be about winning a video game. Real life trumps video games. And on that note, real people, players and customers of the game, deserve support and engagement from a company expecting good returns. The holiday shopping season is coming up. You're planning sales. The way this situation was handled was very poor. I can't imagine it has motivated anyone affected by it to think, hey, I need to get some Riot points and buy a bunch of gifts. I was actually excited to get into the game. I liked it. I was going to buy some skins. Now, instead, I feel conflicted about whether or not I even want to continue playing, because this was handled so poorly. A little redress goes a long way. This is simple business. Riot has one of the worst reputations for money grabbing that I've ever encountered. Even my friends who introduced me to the game see it like this. It's not a matter of everyone wanting everything for free. I know that exists, especially online, but more a matter of people having terrible experiences like this one with Riot support. If it doesn't make them money, a friend told me yesterday, they don't care. So I'm going to say this as a business owner and let you take it or leave it. A little something, even of negligible cost, can make people feel better after something happens like this. Something you don't have to do, even if it's fairly worthless, still makes people feel like they genuinely matter, even if it's not your fault or anyone's fault. But the customer shouldn't be made to feel like it's their fault for something that absolutely is not their fault. Yes, I'm aware of opportunity cost, there's no such thing as a free lunch, everything has some costs. I won't debate economics with you. But to take my own situation as an example, I had an IP boost that was wasted because I was dropped from the match and literally could not connect. I was already frustrated and upset by the situation and everything else that happened. But IP boosts are basically a boost for imaginary currency based around the bizarre formula that calculates the worth of your victory. Would it really have been hard to have said, hey, we know there was a problem and some of you are upset, we can't fix everything, but we can toss you an IP boost? Yeah, some people probably would still be upset. That's why you handle the individuals upset enough to come to you and insist on redress. But it at least is a gesture that shows you're not greedy, you do sympathize, and you are trying to give your players and customers some succor after a situation you know was upsetting. It's also a situation that everyone knows about. It's right there on the boards, and hundreds or thousands of people were affected. You can basically assume that for every person who actually bothers posting in a forum about a problem, there are hundreds or more people for every post who are waiting to see if the issue resolves itself. That's thousands of people who could be potentially either more engaged by a company or, alternatively, more resentful of said company and less willing to spend. Why would I buy further IP boost if a technical issue on Riot's end meant that I might be wasting my money? I'd buy them if I liked Riot. I'd buy them if Riot were there for me when something bad happened that I had no way of fixing or addressing at all, which was also in no way my fault or responsibility to fix. Lever Buster is a problematic program. It is inefficient in its programming. It assumes that any disconnection is malicious and on purpose, but it should be able to detect when a disconnection is not intentional. I know enough about the technology to know that it is not beyond current tech. However, at the very least, it should be able to detect when someone cannot even start a match. I still work in TinyMux's codebase, a text-based freeform role-playing game engine. Even this comparatively ancient codebase still detects how many commands someone sends to the server and can distinguish between someone disconnecting intentionally or incidentally. I would be surprised if you didn't already have this data on record. There is really no reason why LeverBuster should assume malice in the case of someone not even being able to start a match. It was humiliating and insulting to log back in and have to type, "I agree," not to abandon further matches, when I never abandon any match. It was not my issue. I never connected to the match. That is something that is not even slightly difficult to detect with modern technology. I am repeatedly told that no one can do anything about LeverBuster punishments on my account or the accounts of others affected. This is either a bold-faced lie or, if it's true, is irresponsible use of a program. If you cannot fix the results of a program making a mistake, you should not be using said program. Period. No programmer suite is perfect. No program always works perfectly. If we're talking about something that will affect a person's account permanently and may put them at an inconvenience or disadvantage or even affect their ability to play at all, it should be fixable by someone. These were hundreds, if not thousands of players, all affected by something that was not in their ability to even address. This was at Riot's level and furthermore on Riot's end. Players should not have to be paranoid about issues out of their hands. If someone's power goes out, they shouldn't be assumed to have maliciously disconnected, especially when it's a versus AI or custom game. What good does that even do? I could see your position if it were ranked or a significant match, even though I disagree with assuming the worst, and I think LeverBuster needs a serious retooling. In that case, I could kind of see a position against any kind of dropping in the middle of a match. But against bots? Intro or beginner level? Really? This is especially concerning since I kept finding people from Riot saying that LeverBuster won't be reset, meaning presumably that if someone experiences connection interruption, power outage, even unscheduled maintenance to their connection, they may be disciplined by LeverBuster and might actually end up lower priority on queues or even restricted in their access of the game. That is unacceptable, and it certainly isn't fun for any player to consider. If you have a touch of OCD as I do, it makes even playing the game a needlessly stressful endeavor. Exactly the opposite reason of why I play games. If you can't, as you claim, fix LeverBuster's mistakes, you should at the very least have records time out or be able to be worked off. But from what I saw, from official Riot personnel, that's not something that happens. That is a poor operating philosophy, and it will cultivate you exactly zero customer loyalty. In fact, it seems more just like a matter of time until any player is disciplined, whether or not through any fault of their own, into being an ex-customer. Not the best idea for a company wanting to turn a profit. Whether or not I'm correct in my assumptions here, this is the impression that Riot as a company has given. If I'm incorrect, it may be a good idea to do some damage control and let people know that you understand that nature happens, power goes out, that sometimes there are connection issues between Riot and ISPs as happened earlier in the week. Take a little responsibility, too. It looks mature, and as an adult, it's more respectable to me when a company says, mea culpa, here's how we can make it better going forward, instead of giving the impression of, lol bro, it's your fault for being stupid enough to trust me. If your policy is just to say you can't do anything about LeverBuster but actually can, because you're concerned about abuse of the system, that's understandable. However, the game already has multiple mechanics in place, including the ability to report players who actively sabotage games to prevent any such abuse. You have the report functionality. You have the tribunal system. To say nothing of other data that you should have available to you based simply on where we are technologically at this point in time. But moreover, you also have clear documentation of the connectivity issue occurring in a widespread incident a few days ago. If you're worried about abuse, here's what you do. You take the comparatively few people who are going to come to you for some sort of redress of the problems. You look up their matches from that time. It shouldn't be hard, since it will be very clear as to which matches those were. You look up and find out if there's any record of them asking for LeverBuster record removals. You should have all this data available to you, easily accessible. It should work the same way that refunds work at most stores. As long as the person hasn't been abusing the system, as long as the person is a player or customer in good standing, as long as you have a clear record of a connectivity issue on your end, you should help them as a matter of course, immediately and easily, and reassure them so that they are comforted. They're already upset. about something that isn't their fault. Making them more upset just makes you the most convenient outlet for their frustrations, and it also makes you look like the bad guy. Again, not a good business practice, and very unwise if retention and loyalty are important to you. And they should be, especially considering the upcoming holiday shopping season. A little kindness beyond the absolute minimum required goes a long way. Support personnel should read previous messages on a ticket before attempting to participate in the problem and engage the customer. It just annoys someone if you give them exactly the same links they said were incorrectly written, half a dozen times. Speaking of which, someone needs to go in and rewrite your Mac OS X support documents because they're written by someone who clearly has no experience with current Mac systems. The directories where these logs are supposed to be literally do not exist. But I would really prefer if I didn't have to go over the things that the support personnel could just read by using the miracle we call scrolling down in the message. I know working tech support is awful. It is usually terrible to deal with people, but I let people set the tone. I always try and be civil starting out and assume that they can help me and are willing to do so. If the response I receive is a negative one, if someone lies to me and I know they're lying, if someone repeats a conspicuously similar company line instead of actually addressing concern, if someone condescends to me and assumes things they don't have any right or reason to assume, that is when I find it unacceptable. I have found my support experience related to this issue completely unacceptable. It's not that most of the support people I've had contact with were outright hateful, but they didn't read the ticket's message, they copy-pasted or paraphrased meaningless company lines, and they tossed links at me that they didn't bother checking for accuracy. I've been told with a smile to essentially go fuck myself with a turnip. That's not really good business. The ball's in your court.